Welcome to SethCraft. You see the title and the thumbnail. In this video, I'm going to be building the base or foundation for a 10 by 12 detached workshop. As you can see, the homeowner has a concrete patio, and this is going to be the base for our little 10 by 12 shed. So the first step is to take two 12-foot boards and cut those down to 11 foot and 9 inch. And then I'm going to make sure that the 10-foot boards are actually 10 foot, and I'm going to make the frame for this little shed. After that, I'll be able to find the high spot and shim up as needed. So let's go ahead and get those steps out of the way. 11 foot and 9 inches. I have the 10-foot board on this side of the 12-foot board, and I'm going to use a combination of screws and nails to hold this together. You can use just one or the other, but I prefer to use both. Need to make sure that these are flush, so I'm just going to push this one down. I may have to pull this one up to get it to be flush here. The outside frame is now done. We can move this around to place the new shed where we want it to be. And we do want to have this up off of the concrete slab a little bit. And so we're going to be using these Paver stones, and then we're also going to use these to level this out. So I'm going to go ahead and place one of these pavers on all four corners. And I also brought some wood shims if we need them. So got that right there. Now the slab will actually have moisture coming up from the ground, and so we're going to use some 6 mil plastic here. And we know that this side over here is the high side. And so we're going to wrap the plastic up and around and staple into the top of the board, and then have it go up under this frame. And this back side over here is going to be open, so any water that does get into the plastic can just roll off this back side. So, all right, we're gonna go through the process of getting this shimmed up real quick, and then I'll bring you back for unrolling the plastic. We used 2 paver stones high over on this corner, and then we had to use a small treated shim over here on this side, and everything now seems to be level across the way. So very nice. Now we do want to make sure that this is the place we want the frame, and then you'll see back here we've got enough space we can walk behind to attach pieces on this side of the building. All right, now we know where we want it. We're going to go ahead and put a square to this to make sure it is square, and we'll also be measuring diagonal to make sure the numbers match up before we go ahead and lock down the rest of this. To check for square, I'm using this carpenter square here, and just putting it in the corners to make sure that we are square. And we're also going to use a tape measure to go from corner to corner to make sure that way as well. Right there. So we got 189 on both corners. So the 6 mil plastic has been rolled out, and I'm going to wrap around the high side here, so when rainwater does get onto this porch, it'll go up under here, and if moisture is to rise up from underneath, it'll hit this plastic and not get into the building. Now we've left enough on the low side over here that if water ever does get up into this plastic, it'll have a way to find its way out over there. So I'm just going to use a stapler and get this stapled in place. The 6 mil plastic is now up under the frame, so that should keep the moisture out from the ground. Now I've also added some more paver stones here in the middle of the frame so that it has nice support. Okay, now it's time to cut the joists that will go from this side over here all the way to match over here. So let me go ahead and start pulling those out. Now these are 2x6 treated boards for the base. That is important whenever you do an outbuilding. I'm going to have 5 joists going from this side here to that side. So I need to cut 5 10-foot boards down to 117 inches. Just finished getting the 5th board cut here. Now I'm just kind of loosely placing them here. I'm going to come back in just a moment and mark 2 foot on center, and that way whenever I put the OSB sheathing on here, it'll have an edge to attach to. And then I'm also going to be cutting blocking that will go in this direction, and that will allow the OSB to have an edge on this direction as well. So, all right, the next step is to mark out on my sideboards where the 2-foot mark is. From the edge over here, I'm going to go over, I'm going to mark the 2-foot mark, and I'm actually going to step back 3/4 inch on both sides. And that's going to be the placement of my board. I'm just showing you here what that's going to look like. So right there is where that board is going to go. And basically, when I do that, the next over is going to put this on center, so my OSB will have half of this one and half of that one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and use a screw just to hold this in place. I'm also put some nails because that's what I like to do. Now the homeowner and I talked, and he also wants to use some joist hangers. This might be a little bit overkill for a building this size, but I'm going to go ahead and get this on the board down here before I screw this into position, and that's just going to give that much more extra support, so this board isn't going to be rolling around or anything. Go to the other side real quick and get that one up as well before I tighten this down. Now the joist hangers have this little tab you are supposed to be able to hammer in, and it'll hold it for you. I always have a struggle with those, so I'm going to use some of these little 1.5 inch screws real quick just to hold the top piece in place. And then I will put little galvanized nails everywhere else. Now for the remaining hole down here, I can just use these little galvanized 1.5 inch nails. Anything longer would poke through my other side of the wood here, so get those done. And now I've just got some 3-inch galvanized nails. I'm going to angle these hopefully pretty steep to prevent these from coming out the other side of the wood. Alright, once I get all these in, this joist should be quite secure. Alright, I'm going to get this other side done over here. And I've got a bunch more of these to go, as you can see. So I'm going to get these done without you, and I'll show you what it looks like whenever I get done. I just finished getting all of the joist hangers installed on both sides. Everything is nice and secure. Now, I'm going to be using this 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood, and so it is going to be 4 foot by 8 foot. So it will go from this corner here to midway on this board, and it'll step up here 8 feet, which means I need to have support here at the 8-foot mark to keep this edge secure. So I'm going to be adding boards in here, some blocking, and I'm just going to use screws for these. But you can see over here I have 4 more of these 12-foot 2x6s. And so what I'm going to do to make sure this thing is nice and secure is I'm going to be putting those at the 2-foot mark and give this lots of support. And so I'm going to be staggering my OSB, so I'll have an 8-foot piece right here, and then I'm going to jump up there, have an 8-foot piece over there, and then once again over there. So, all right, let's go ahead and start cutting blocks out of these boards right here. On both my 10-foot ends, I'm going to use my tape measure, and I'm going to mark out where those blocks are going to go. I'm going to step into the next one and also mark. Now what I'm going to do is stagger the ones in the middle because they won't have to have the OSB edge, but this one and the other end will have to have a straight line, so I'll have to toenail to keep that in line. Alright, let's start right here. I need to find the distance between right here and right here so that I can cut my first block. Looks like we got 21 3/8. Alright, let's find 21 3/8. Okay, let me see how I did here. Pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this block in. My sheet of OSB is gonna land halfway on this, so I need to have the next one in line also straight across. In other words, I can't stagger this one because I want that edge straight across. So once again, let me measure and then cut this one. So this time we've got 22 and a half. I can go ahead and screw in from this side over here, no problem. But this side over here, I'm going to have to toenail so that it will stay up where it needs to be, because I can't get to it from the back side. So if I place the 8-foot piece of OSB right here, the end of it will be right here on the middle of this board. So whenever I move over here to the next section, I do not have to have them directly in line, because the next piece of OSB will extend from right here all the way out to the 8-foot mark. And so on these next ones, I can just stagger a bit and get screws in from the inside and not have to do the toenailing. The first course is done on the blocking. Just have 3 more sets of those and we will be good. So like I was saying before, you can see these 2 right here are lined up, those 2 are kind of staggered, and then those 2 are lined up. So for the middle 2 right here, I'm just going to stagger them back and forth because I won't have any OSB ending on those pieces. And then just like the first 2, I'm going to have these 2 staggered here. The 2 in the middle will be in a straight line, and those 2 over there can be staggered. So, all right, it's a lot of work. I'll show this to you whenever I get finished. Just finished getting all the blocking done. It is quite sturdy. Everything seems to be in good order. All right, so this is going to be an insulated floor. And so we have 2-inch foam insulation, which is rated at 10R, I believe. So we're gonna measure these squares and hopefully be able to use this circular saw. If not, we're going to be doing this by hand with a razor knife. So, all right, let's take some measurements and see what we can do. All right, the inside dimensions of our first square here, we've got 21 3/4. This side is 21 1/2. Got 21 3/4 and 21 3/4. So, all right, we'll have to start cutting out these, see if the saw will do it. It's taken us a lot longer than anticipated, but we now have each of these little cells insulated. So now it's time to move on to getting the tongue and groove OSB on top of this. So I'm going to use some liquid nails adhesive to go along the outside edge of the surface here, so that whenever we put the OSB down, it will really have something to lock down to. All right, you match up your end there. I'm gonna drop mine, okay? Nice. So now, I think so. Now we should be able to lock down with some screws. Okay, we just finished up the base here. It's actually taken all day to get this done. So let me show you the completed product here. So we've got everything sheathed, and we've put tons and tons of 3-inch Torx head screws in here. And you can see we use the tongue and groove, so it's all locked in, and it is looking really nice. Now, tongue and groove, I had not realized, isn't full coverage 4x8, so we added another little strip over here to finish things up. But as you saw, there's plenty of cross bracing in here to make sure this is going to be strong enough for people just to be walking across. So, all right, there we go. So we've got the paver stones, we've got the plastic underneath. It's open on this side, and we wrapped it up on this side, so as rain falls down, it will go up under there, and that should help to prevent moisture from getting up into the building. And then we've got the foam inside. It's a 2-inch foam, and the R value on this is 10, so should definitely help to keep the cool and the heat in here, since we are going to be installing a mini split. But there you go. That's the completed project. This is the very first step in this build. There's going to be tons more. We've got walls and roof and electrical and all kinds of other fun things to go into this little building. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.